Well, welcome back to another real short talk with Ryan, where today we are going to be talking about the when and the where of evangelism. We've been talking about kind of the theological underpinnings of evangelism, if you will, right? We've talked about who should be doing it, what it actually is, why we should be doing evangelism. And now we've got to put that into practice. We've actually got to go and do evangelism. And that's what I want to talk about today. Next week, we're going to talk about how, maybe some practical ways that we can be implementing this. It's going to be very closely connected today as we answer that when and where question. Let's dive in. So we're going to talk about this from 1 Peter chapter 3. As always, I encourage you to go look this up for yourself, see what I'm reading is really from the Bible. If you have questions about it, send us a message, send me a message. I'd love to talk with you more about it. But in 1 Peter chapter 3, Peter begins talking about wives and husbands and what that relationship is to look like. And then he goes on to make it more broad. How are we to walk righteously? In light of all that Christ has done for us, in light of the good news of the gospel, what are we to do? And he says, finally, all of you have unity of mind, sympathy, brotherly love, a tender heart, and a humble mind. Do not repay evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, bless, for to this you were called, that you may obtain blessings. They say, hey, walk wisely, walk for the glory of God. Don't walk in evil, walk in good. Walk as God would have you to walk. And then he quotes from Isaiah chapter 8. And again, the same kind of idea. He's proving his point here. Keep your tongue from evil, keep your lips from deceit. This is what the Lord desires. And then he asks this hypothetical question in verse 13. He says, now who is there to harm you if you are zealous for what is good? Now he's writing to people that have been harmed for doing what is good, that have been harmed for doing what they ought to be doing. And then he answers that question in verse 14. And he says, but even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you will be blessed. Have no fear of them, nor be troubled. It says, hey, even if bad things happen to you, even if people don't understand what you're doing, if people don't like that you're doing good, if they don't recognize what you're doing, don't worry about it. But in your hearts, honor Christ the Lord as holy. He's like, hey, stay firm and stay true. And this is the part I want to see as we talk about that when and the where. Always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for the reason for the hope that is in you. So he's saying, hey, at all times be prepared, particularly when people don't understand what you're doing, right? So what he's saying, as you live your Christian life, which should look different than everybody else, you should be doing things that honor and glorify God, that the people around you that don't know Christ are going to question. People talk about this, living a questionable life, a life that people want to look at and be like, what is going on? And some people are not going to understand. Some people are going to make fun of you for it, but they're going to question it because they're going to want to know. And he says, be ready to make a defense. So as you go, the when and the where is everywhere at any time, because you never know when somebody's going to ask you these questions. Be prepared to tell them why you have hope. Be prepared to tell them why you do good instead of evil. It's not because you're just a great person, right? Don't lose that opportunity. Say, hey, this is why I do this, because Christ who saved me, Christ who loved me, Christ who died on the cross for my sins has called me to something better. But he says with gentleness and respect, and this kind of touches on what we're going to touch on next week. But hey, we're not to be braggadocious about it. We're not to rub it in people's faces and try and shove it down their throats, even though we want to, because we have the best news in the world. But we do it with gentleness and respect. We say, hey, this is what I believe. Do you want to know more about this? Hey, can I tell you more about this? You don't have to ask to make that initial, hey, can I tell you about Jesus? You've asked me the question by asking me, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? But hey, can I tell you more about Jesus? Right? So the when and the where, all of that to say, the when and the where is at any time and anywhere as people come and ask you, live your life before others so that they may see Christ reflected in you and that you may then present the gospel to them with your words. That's what we've got for today. Thanks for joining us for this real short talk with Ryan. We'll see you back next week. Until then, glorify his name.